Hey everyone, Nigel and Luke here, and welcome to another edition of Crimes of the Week International. Authorities in the Indian state of Himachal Pradesh say that a couple of bumbling thieves were sent into a destructive rampage this week after they broke into a bank with the intention of robbing it, only to realize that they couldn't find any money. According to reports, the incident began at around 3 a.m. on February 26th, when the unknown pair of suspects arrived at the Lambloo branch of the Punjab National Bank, located in Hamirpur district. After creating a large hole in the building's back wall, the masked intruders made their way inside and began to look around for what they were there for: money. While it's unclear whether there was no actual cash in the bank at the time, or whether the suspects had simply broken into the wrong part of the building, authorities say that the would-be thieves quickly realized that things weren't going well. CCTV footage reportedly showed them getting more and more agitated as they searched around frantically and couldn't manage to find even a bit of cash. Eventually realizing that they would have to flee the scene empty-handed, the angry suspects allegedly turned to vandalism instead. Police say that they burned nearly 150 bank files in the building's record room before officers were able to arrive at the scene. While local media sources do not mention whether the suspects were caught, from the sounds of it they managed to get away as no information about them was provided. However, police did state that all of the bank's money was safe. At the time of this recording, no additional information about the incident has been released. A London woman is blasting the city's Metropolitan Police Department this week after she says that she was ignored and offered excuses by officers following a terrifying incident at her home where she allegedly shielded a woman from a violent attacker. According to reports, the situation unfolded just after 7:40 p.m. on February 26th, when the homeowner and her partner, who have not been identified by name, heard a commotion outside of their house in the city's Harlesden district. They opened the door to see a bleeding woman in her 20s on their front steps who appeared to be running from a man. The woman managed to make it inside before collapsing, saying that she didn't know the man who was attacking her. While the homeowner and her partner tended to the victim, it wasn't long before the terrifying situation continued when the alleged male attacker arrived at their front door. He proceeded to try and violently force his way inside, slamming the front windows with some sort of weapon and trying to kick down the door. When the homeowner called 999 for help from police, she says that operators told her they couldn't give her any kind of time frame as to their arrival due to the Carabao Cup Finals soccer match that was going on at Wembley Stadium. Though the suspect allegedly continued his rampage outside the Harlesden property for some time, thankfully the door appears to have kept him at bay. By the time police arrived at the scene, the homeowner claims that a full 16 minutes had passed since the time of her initial emergency call, and the suspect was nowhere to be found. According to the homeowner, her issues with police didn't stop there though. She says that upon finally getting there, officers spent most of their time inspecting the outside of her house, and even though she volunteered Ring camera footage that had captured most of the ordeal, this was allegedly dismissed by authorities until approximately 40 minutes later. The woman further claims that the few officers who did try to go after the suspect went in the complete opposite direction that she and other witnesses at the scene had pointed out. As for the circumstances of the actual attack, little information appears to have been released. According to local media reports, though, the victim was attacked by the suspect while walking home, and before running to the random house for safety, had actually managed to call a family member for help. That family member, identified only as a man in his 50s, was also allegedly attacked, and was later taken to the hospital alongside the victim in her 20s. Both suffered non-life-threatening injuries and have since been discharged. For their part, London Metropolitan Police defended their handling of the situation, with a spokesman giving a statement to the media in the aftermath. It read in part, quote, "We know that Londoners expect us to be there for them when they need us, and we recognize the importance of being able to respond to the most serious emergencies as quickly as possible. The Met's goal is to reach 90% of first-grade calls such as this within 15 minutes. and we were on the scene in 16 minutes. Thankfully, it appears that the suspect in the case has actually now been caught and taken into custody. He has not been identified by name, though was said to be 22 years old and was arrested on suspicion of grievous bodily harm. Authorities in the Australian state of New South Wales say that a 28-year-old man is facing murder charges this week after he allegedly killed his Russian girlfriend who had only arrived in the country a few months ago in search of a better life. According to reports, the incident began sometime before 1 a.m. on February 25th, when residents on Brighton Street, in the Sydney suburb of Greystanes, awoke to the chilling sounds of screams from one of their neighbors' homes. The property belongs to the parents of a 28-year-old local man named Isaac Costa, and police now say it is where he committed a brutal murder. When officers arrived at the scene, they found a critically injured woman inside, later identified as software engineer Anastasia Slastian. Anastasia was reportedly unconscious when they got there, and sadly, attempts to revive her were unsuccessful. She was soon pronounced dead. At the same time, Costa was arrested at the house and was allegedly found by police to be heavily intoxicated. He has since been charged with Anastasia's murder. At the time of this recording, few details are available about what might have motivated the crime or what is alleged to have happened in the lead-up to it. Unconfirmed reports, however, have stated that Anastasia was beaten to death. According to these same reports, Anastasia was a talented software engineer and world traveler who had only recently started a new life in Australia. While most sources identify her as a Russian national, others say that she was originally from Latvia and had family in both countries. She had obtained a work visa in Australia near the end of last year and had been living in the country for less than 6 months. Though police are still looking into how the young victim met Costa, it's alleged that just days before her death, he began introducing her as his fiancée. The 28-year-old currently remains in custody, and the investigation is ongoing. Authorities in China's Jiangxi province say that 3 police officers are dead this week following a terrifying knife attack at the hands of an alleged drunk driver. According to reports, the incident began sometime on February 24th, when the suspect, identified only by the last name Huang, was pulled over in Shangli County for driving while intoxicated and driving without a license. Later that evening, he returned to the local police station and attacked multiple officers, managing to catch them by surprise. Sadly, 3 were critically injured during the attack and died of their injuries after Huang was finally restrained. At the time of this recording, few other details are unfortunately available about the crime. It's unclear why Huang was not placed in custody at the time he was pulled over for drunk driving, allowing him to return to the police station later with a knife. However, some reports we came across have noted that police in more remote areas of China are generally less well trained, often poorly armed, and have fewer resources available to them. They are also known to rely on auxiliaries and part-time security guards to boost the numbers of available officers. For example, one of the deceased victims of the attack only worked part-time. Currently, all officials have said so far about the incident is that Huang will be, quote, rigorously prosecuted under the law. The situation is still developing. Authorities in the Thai capital of Bangkok say that they were stunned this week when they finally caught up with a wanted drug trafficker, only to discover the insane lengths that he had gone to in order to avoid detection. According to reports, Sarahat Sawanjung first caught the attention of the Royal Thai Police Force a couple of years ago, when he was first arrested for crimes related to the importation and sale of MDMA and ecstasy. However, over time, investigators say he became a much bigger player, ordering larger and larger quantities of these drugs via the dark web and paying for them with Bitcoin, while facilitating a network of buyers and sellers in and around the Bangkok area. In November of last year, it seemed like Sarahat was finally busted for good, when one of his illegal packages containing nearly 300 ecstasy pills and roughly 5 pounds of liquid MDMA was discovered by the country's customs officials. Reports seem to differ on what happened next, with some stating that he was able to escape from custody, while others suggest that police were never able to find him in the first place. Regardless, it was at that point that a warrant was put out for his arrest, and a serious operation to bring him down was put into action. According to local media, after several months, police were able to get an undercover officer in contact with Sarahat, who posed as a drug mule. The undercover officer agreed to sell and smuggle for Sarahat and managed to learn that he was still in Bangkok, but was planning to try and move to South Korea. Finally, this week, using information obtained by the officer, police were able to link Sarahat to a condo in Bang Na district. However, when they raided the place, they were surprised by what they found. It turned out that Sarahat was now living under a completely different identity and looked vastly different to previous mugshots that police had of him. This was because he had had extensive plastic surgery with the goal of making himself look Korean. He was also going by a new name, Song Jimin. Apparently, the work Sarahat had done was pretty convincing, because multiple witnesses in the case had described him as a, quote, handsome Korean man during their investigation. Even police themselves told the media, quote, none of his original face was left. Unfortunately, all of the available pictures we could find of Sarahat have his eyes censored, though you can tell even from these that his appearance has changed significantly. Despite the elaborate change of appearance, though, ultimately, Sarahat was still placed under arrest on the outstanding drug charges. A police spokesman later called him, quote, one of the main causes of Bangkok's MDMA epidemic, and said, he is a drug lord importing MDMA from Europe at just 25 years old. At the time of this recording, police say that they're continuing their investigation and that they believe there are more people involved in the operation who are currently in foreign countries. Authorities in the South African province of Limpopo say that 4 suspects have been arrested and are facing charges this week after they allegedly murdered a 30-year-old man and threw his body in a local river in order to try and cover up the crime. According to reports, the incident began on February 23rd when police divers recovered the 30-year-old victim's body from the Olifants River. Several initial witnesses told police that they had seen the man unexpectedly jump into the water and that they believed that he had drowned. However, as police began to press other people for information and managed to locate the victim's father, the case quickly took a sinister turn. The father told police that the day before, several people had shown up with his son at his home in the municipality of Umpalele. The group said that his son owed them money, and according to the father, he appeared to be injured. The man said that he would pay them back in 3 days, but they refused, and took the 30-year-old victim with them. Other witnesses were able to fill in the remaining details, saying that they believed the victim had been murdered and that his body had been thrown in the river in an attempt to stage the crime as an accidental drowning. Authorities now say that they have arrested 4 people in connection with the case, all of whom are now facing murder charges. At the time of this recording, neither the names of the victim nor the suspects have been released. Authorities in South Australia say that they are investigating a bizarre vehicle-related incident this week after a 42-year-old woman crashed her car in what her boyfriend claims was a deliberate effort to try and run him over. The situation began sometime on the afternoon of February 26th when the suspect, 42-year-old Charlotte Harrison, and her boyfriend, Matthew Finn, were traveling in her vehicle together on Melbourne Street in the suburb of North Adelaide. Finn claims that an argument began between them when he reached for one of Harrison's French fries, which were part of a chicken and chip salad pack. He would later say to the media, quote, I thought she was finished. Yeah, I shouldn't have asked for that chip. According to Finn, his French fry request started an argument between him and Harrison, which escalated when she pulled over and told him to get out of the car. He claims that he did as he was told and was walking away, when Harrison swung the vehicle around at a high rate of speed, causing her to collide with another driver and sending her slamming into a power box. Finn says that Harrison did this because she was trying to hit him with the vehicle. Police arrested Harrison at the scene, who is now reportedly facing charges of aggravated endangering life and driving in a reckless or dangerous manner. For her part, Harrison says the truth about what happened couldn't be more different. She claims that it had nothing to do with French fries and that she was only in the area in the first place because she was concerned about Finn and had come to pick him up because he wasn't feeling well. She claims that when she did pick Finn up, he assaulted her, and that after he left the vehicle, she was making a U-turn to drive to the police station. In her account, the crash was caused by her mixing up the pedals in her car because of her panicked state. Whether Finn or Harrison is the one telling the truth is unclear, though obviously it's now a matter for the courts to decide. Unfortunately, there's no word on what happened to Harrison's remaining French fries. Authorities in the Brazilian state of Mato Grosso say that 8 people are dead this week, including one of the perpetrators, after 2 men viciously gunned down patrons at a pool hall after they were allegedly laughed at for losing. According to reports, the incident began sometime on the morning of February 21st, when one of the suspects, 30-year-old Edgar Ricardo de Oliveira, went to a pool hall in the city of Sinop. While there, he was betting on games and ended up losing about 4,000 reais, or about $770 to a man that he played against. Oliveira left the establishment only to return in the afternoon, this time accompanied by another man, 27-year-old Ezequiel Souza Ribeiro. The pair challenged the same man that Oliveira had lost to previously to a second game, and ended up losing once again. Several of those standing around reportedly laughed about the situation. This humiliation, combined with being laughed at for losing, reportedly enraged Oliveira and Ribeiro so much that both of them snapped. The result was horrific. According to police, chilling surveillance camera footage obtained from the pool hall showed how Ribeiro pulled out a handgun and forced everyone present to stand and face one of the business's walls. At the same time, Oliveira left and grabbed a shotgun before proceeding to fire upon the victims one by one at near point-blank range. Some could allegedly be seen collapsing to the ground as others attempted to run for their lives. The massacre would claim the lives of 7 people, including the pool hall owner and a 12-year-old girl. Police say that many of those killed weren't even involved in the betting or the game that Oliveira and Ribeiro had played. Following the shooting, the 2 suspects were observed grabbing rolls of cash from some of the pool tables as well as a woman's purse before fleeing the scene. The day after the horrific incident, Ribeiro was tracked to a wooded area around 9 miles away from the state capital of Cuiabá, where he reportedly engaged in a shootout with police. He was hit during the confrontation and died after being taken to a local hospital. Oliveira, meanwhile, turned himself in to police the following day. According to reports, the suspect offered a disturbing confession after his arrest. He claimed that he had no intention of killing any kids, and said that he and Ribeiro should have spared lives. At the time of this recording, Oliveira remains in police custody. Before we wrap up, we'd like to take a minute to thank our amazing supporters over on Patreon. As many of you are aware, our situation on YouTube always seems to be a bit uncertain, but our patrons help to ensure that we can continue to make content like this long term without having to worry as much about what surprises might be thrown our way. Plus, patrons also get access to 4 additional stories per week for each of our Crimes of the Week and Crimes of the Week International videos. If you'd like to help support the channel directly, head over to patreon.com/crimezone to join. You can also find that link in the description below. As always, thank you so much for watching, and take care.